Hey, everybody, it's No Driving Gloves. We're doing a little bonus episode here. We're really privileged. I think Derek and I, and heck, Will, we've talked about some of the upcoming car events and thrown a few out. And there actually looks to be one that Derek and I might both show up at. We're not too sure. We just were talking about that pre-show. We're happy to have Ken Gross join us this evening to discuss the Chattanooga Motorcar Festival, which is honoring Jim Pace this year. I guess Derek's with us tonight. I never said that, but
well, I'm here too, and really, John. I mean, it's not a might for me. I mean, Ken has pretty much convinced me that I will be there. Corvette Museum is bringing 2 Corvettes for the show. There's no doubt in my mind that I'm going to show up, so long as Ken doesn't get mad at me on this podcast and say, "Never mind, don't show up." So it's really up to you to show up, John.
Well, you obviously are bringing me a rental car. I can use one of those Vets over the weekend, right?
No.
Okay. Doesn't hurt to ask. How are you doing tonight, Ken?
Just fine. Working out a number of details for Chattanooga right now. We have more cars than we had last year. The street size hasn't changed. So Mike Tilson and I are working to get 160 cars into the various streets. I think it's going to be very exciting. If anyone went in 2019, it'll be a very different show. If you haven't been, we're excited to welcome you.
Yeah, I used to do the motorcycle swap meet for the Barber Vintage Festival, and always trying to figure out how to adjust the spots to get a little bit more revenue, get a couple more spots rented, and shuffling things around like that. And at least you don't have the people that have legacy parking spots or legacy spots.
No, I just hate to say no to people who have really nice cars.
It's tough to say no.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Ken, going back, it's a great problem to have too many cars or have that many cars, especially you're, coming into the essentially second year of hosting this and having more people wanting to come. But the cool thing for anybody that has not been to this, because I was there in 19, we had a whole street of Corvettes. It was awesome. It's a whole different feeling than almost any other car show because you're in the streets of Chattanooga. So not only are you able to walk around and see all these great cars parked on the streets, but all the businesses are open. You can jump into a restaurant and get a sandwich and pop back out and see more cars. I mean, it's a very cool setting to be able to do this and essentially be walking around downtown and partaking in all these fantastic cars that you guys bring in.
And literally, you can walk out of the Weston or the Indigo and be in the show. It's a very short walk to the new area where the track is, but we do have electric shuttles getting people back and forth. So everything is within, really, you could say, eye distance, walking distance. It's all right there. You park your car or you get your hotel room. You don't have to worry about anything else.
And John, you haven't been, so you don't know how cool it is. That's why you got to come.
Yeah, I've always meant to come. When you never think of Chattanooga as a car place, you really never think of the South as a car town.
Well, we've got Coker Tire within a baseball throw of the Weston Hotel with Corky's Museum and so forth. Derek mentioned our lineup of Corvettes. Between Derek's museum and the General Motors Heritage Collection last in 2019, they let us have some wonderful cars on display. We had a brand new C8, which a lot of people hadn't seen. And this year, continuing with their goodness, we have 2 GM Motorama Firebirds, Firebird 1 and 2. Number 3 is on display at the DIA. And we have the Cadillac Cyclone, the car that impressed Ed Welburn to eventually become the head of design for GM, and the Cadillac Le Mans, which many people may have never seen. It's a 2-seater Cadillac, which wouldn't have been a Corvette contender, but might have been another roadster for General Motors to sell. And they're all rare cars. They're all silver. I think that'll be an exciting visual for people to see. And we have Christo from the Heritage Center and myself. My dad took me to the GM Motorama at the Commonwealth Armory in Boston in 1955. It's a lasting memory. So we'll talk about Motorama and the effect these great shows had while people can see some of the cars.
And let's just quickly, we probably should tell people the dates. I obviously have your webpage behind me, but for those that are not watching the show, October 15th through 17th. About 2 weeks off. You benefit Neuroscience Innovation Foundation and the CHI Memorial Neuroscience Center. And I'm kind of partial a little bit to some those nonprofits in particular, due to friends and family, I guess you would say. What kind of special are you guys doing? Seminars? Are you going to have presentations, special guests, or anything like that going on? Or
The answer is yes, yes, and yes. Um, we will have we're going to have a group of Tuckers, so we'll have Mike Tucker and some other Tucker aficionados to talk about Tuckers. Porsche Cars North America is going to have a forum where we'll have people as diverse as Brian Redmond and David Hobbs, who race 917s, and people like Tanner Faust to talk about how Porsche influenced them as kids. We have Ray Evernham there, and Linda Vaughn, and Keith Martin, and Elenda Cadney, and the list kind of goes on and on. The drivers that I mentioned. We'll have 2 seminars each day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday forums, and you can watch those. You don't have to be cooped up in an auditorium with somebody who may or may not have had a vaccine. We'll be outside because we've got stages at either end of the concourse where we don't have people like Wayne Carini and Keith Martin talking about cars, and Tom Cotter. We will have some bands playing, so it's nonstop in terms of entertainment.
you said you were putting together some last minute logistics there to deal with that many VIP guests, and I mean that's a pretty stout list of names there.
That's not even all of them. Oh gosh, Lynn St. James, didn't mention her, and Corky Coker, of course. Did say Wayne Carini. Oh, and Scott Speed will be there. I mean, people do like to get up close and personal and get autographs and talk to these folk. And everyone we have, I feel, are the sort of celebrity, if you will, who's really a car guy or a car gal, and they're there to talk to you, to meet you, and to sign autographs and be part of the show.
Very, very interesting. You're really teasing me with at least driving up for a day. Chattanooga's not that far from my home.
You mentioned, and I'd just like to underscore the neuroscience research in the CHI Memorial. All the proceeds, every penny, goes to support neuroscience research, ALS and stroke, Parkinson's disease. The research that's done in Chattanooga is world class. They've developed a computerized way. Someone has a stroke in another part of the country. The scientists, doctors in Chattanooga can give them directions as to what to do for the medical procedure remotely. They're only advancing this type of research more and more. We were going to have Michael J. Fox, but because of COVID, he unfortunately isn't coming. We're having a Meekum auction, and Dana Meekum was going to help us raffle off a DeLorean. Well, we're still going to do that and do the money for charity, but unfortunately, Michael J. Fox had to cancel. But there'll be plenty more.
I'll say, unfortunately, COVID's put a wrench into a lot of things. And you mentioned earlier, the majority of these events are outside, correct? Or all of them are outside? Everything's outside. And I assume, masks are encouraged even outside, but...
Well, state of Tennessee rules will apply, and whatever they're telling us we have to do. We have a special display of 18 Ferraris this year, and they're over-the-top Ferraris. I mean, we're talking an Art Spider and a 500 TRC from Bill Marriott, and a 342 America that's a one-of-one Michelotti car. So that'll be at the right in front of the Westin on special grass pads that Byron DeFore developed for the hotel with the hope that one day they'd have a car show. We're going to take bright red cars and put them on that green grass, and it'll look like a Ferrari Christmas.
Now, is that the pads that we had some of the Corvettes on in 19, Ken?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, because that is fantastic. I mean, we had some of the Corvettes set up there, I think, the day before the concours, and it was killer. It is a beautiful setting to have those cars on.
We haven't mentioned the racetrack yet. In 2019, we had sort of a point-to-point track arrangement that ran along the river. Byron DeFore and his brother Ken have endeared themselves to the city of Chattanooga by building great hotels, restaurants, and so forth, and developing the section where the show is, and it's called the West Village. And now they've been allowed to build a 2.1 mile circular racetrack. But by circular, I mean it's enclosed, but of course there's right and left turns and a little elevation and so forth. They're going to expand it next year even longer, but for this year, we'll have a 2-mile course. You can take your Lola T70 and go blasting around on it.
And is that using some of the city streets and they're just kind of blocking them off and creating?
Well, they repaved a few because they thought that some of these cars would be bouncing into the river if they didn't. But yes, it's a city street course with appropriate barriers. We've already had a couple of racing experts look at it, including Brian Redmond, who said that he'd like to drive it. I think we're going to be in good shape. We have Chris Vandegrift, who you all probably know from Laguna Seca and California sports car racing, and Chris is in charge of the race portion. And he's brought people in from HSR and other sanctioning bodies. We think we've got the right people to run it. I'm looking forward to a lap on the track, although I'd like to do it in Corky Coker's Mercer Raceabout. So,
yeah.
Technically, you have a full-fledged vintage race going on in addition to this.
We do, and we also have 2 days of road rally organized by the Coker Tire people and the Great Race people. So if you enter a car for the rally, you can do 1 or 2 days in the Tennessee countryside. It's not one of those intense time, speed, distance, headache-producing fight with your co-pilot type of rally. It'll be a lot more fun. It's not a powder puff, but it's not going to give you a migraine.
Is that open to select vehicles or anybody who pays the fee, or what's the criteria?
Yeah, run what you brung. I mean, we want sports cars, GT cars, interesting cars, hot rods even. We've got a little of everything.
And now for those of us that, although we're at the Corvette Museum, as you can see in the background, we like older cars too. A good friend of mine is bringing a car, and I'm to understand you guys are having the Ragtime Racers there as well.
I'd heard that. I don't know the details, but maybe you do, Derek, in Kentucky.
I have heard that they are going to be there. A good friend of mine is bringing his EMF racer down. They're going to have that kind of brass era early race car group set up. That, at least that's what I've heard. Ken, didn't mean to surprise you.
Oh no, if it's brass, it's Corky Coker who's handling that for us. Corky's bringing quite a few of his cars in addition to the Mercer that I mentioned. He's got Thomas Flyers. Your friend probably knows that EMF stands for every mechanical failure, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Despite the name of the 3 partners, it quickly became known as. But I judged that car. It's a black Speedster, I think, or dark color.
Nope, not that one. It's a red one.
Okay. They'll be welcome. I love brass cars myself. Anytime you have a 100-year-old car, you get people looking at it and they can't believe it can even turn a wheel, forgetting that people drove those things across country. They drove them around town. They were our first auto.
And they raced at over 100 miles an hour. A lot of those early brass cars. I mean, sure. There are some large engine, very fast brass era cars. So if they get a chance to run them, and I've seen the Ragtime Racers run, they don't always take it easy on those cars. So
right, that'll be welcome.
We'll discuss the motoring festival, but let's say I brought a partner, my wife or my kids or my girlfriend or somebody who's not necessarily into cars as much, and you need to pacify them. I've never been there. What kind of things are within walking distance? You keep talking down on the river, and for some reason I keep picturing you near the aquarium or something. But
well, the aquarium is certainly one of the big attractions. There's a rock climbing wall if you've got a particularly adventurous partner. There's great shopping, great restaurants. Chattanooga is a very people-friendly city, and they're used to having large crowds. They do the Ironman Festival. They do a number of other citywide events. I don't think your partner will be bored. And if she wants to buy you a present, she can go to our Automobilia exhibit, which is being run by the people who do Automobilia magazine, and get you a gas globe or a neon sign or some other trinket.
Just what John needs, a flashing neon sign to bring more attention to himself.
I see a pretty Spartan garage behind Derek, though. He could probably use a little bit of signage, perk it up.
Hey, come on. It's about the cars. Come on. Ken, let's get into a little bit deeper part of the story. What led you to get involved in creating this back in 2019?
Really, Byron DeFore and his brother Ken. This was their idea. They worked with Corky Coker, and they worked with Jim Pace, who was a unique, really wonderful guy, a racer, a racing instructor, and I miss him terribly. I only met him last 2 years ago, but we worked together. And if you've ever been in a situation where you meet someone and you immediately start finishing one another's sentences, and you know that if he says it's done, or it's handled, it's handled. We have 3 people to replace Jim with the organization, but they really conceptualized the whole thing, and they had other people managing it. And I had pretty busy. I had no intention of doing anything like this. And a friend of mine recommended me to Byron because they suddenly had a gap and needed someone as a Concours director. And when Byron first called, I said, I'm busy. I really can't help you on deadlines of a book I'm working on. He said, well, you eat breakfast, don't you? I said, I do. He said, well, where are you eating breakfast tomorrow morning? And I said, probably in my kitchen. What have you got in mind? He said, how far are you from Dulles Airport? I said, I'm 25 miles. He said, well, we have a plane. I'll fly up and meet you for breakfast. You can meet some of our team, and we'll tell you what we're about, and maybe you'll be interested. So they did. So Jim and Ember Suchet and Byron came up, and I listened to what they had to say, both about the event and about the neuroscience research, because a good friend of mine, former racer, had just died of ALS. And I said, you know what? I'll help you. And I just liked them. I liked the approach they were taking, and I thought I'd enjoy working with these people. So, like any writer does, I moved some deadlines around and jumped in, and we had an exciting first year. And I mean, Derek, I don't want to brag, but I don't think that people felt that it was the first time event. Would you say that's a fair statement?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it felt like it had been going on for years. I mean, the crowd that showed up, the interest, I mean, even with, we kind of got a cold snap, if you remember that. And it was quite chilly the first morning there, but it didn't stop anybody. They still came out. I mean, it was kind of cool too, to see it, because it just showed how open Chattanooga is to this kind of event. And I mean, there's probably not a lot of cities in this country that would shut down so much of the streets to host a car event like this. I mean, it was impressive, and I didn't hear anyone complain, gripe. I think somebody was trying to hunt me down because firing up a 63 Z06 split window Corvette at 5:30 in the morning in front of the Westin Hotel, I woke a few people up, but it's all part of the game.
If you're a car enthusiast, you don't mind. You truly don't mind.
I'm going back to, if I decide to drive up or come over, I'm not going to do all, 15, 16, 17, all 3 days. Any idea on emission or anything, or tickets and ease of parking and all that? Or I know you said you had electric shuttles and things, but
well, all that's on the website for detail. But
okay,
and the website is, for those people who are listening, so I don't miss a trick here. It's www.ChattanoogaMotorcar.com. And I think you'll find it pretty informative from what I've seen. We think it's reasonably priced. We looked at other events to see, but you can go for 1 day, 2 or 3. You don't have to do it all. I didn't mention the Vintage Boat Show, but we've got that going on as well. I think there's kind of something for everyone.
You're not leaving much out. Trains and planes are upcoming in what, 22 and 23?
Yeah, how do we get trains and planes involved here? Because, man,
I'm amazed at what your team's put together, because I've done been part of a team for large scale events, and it's just a massive thing to do, and then to do it all for charity. It's a wonderful thing that all of you are putting together, and I guess the car collectors of the world, and because I also know it's tough to get these West Coast guys to bring their stuff to the East Coast. Now, granted, Tennessee's not quite the East Coast, but it's pretty darn close.
We looked at that, and to speak to it for a moment, we thought that each year from now on, we'll take a particular mark, and we'll invite some of the big players and see if they'll come, host them with a special dinner and so forth. That really worked with Ferrari. I mean, we've got 18 over-the-top cars, and I'm not talking 308s and 355s and whatever, but serious V12 Enzo, great cars, F40s and so forth. And we think that that's a strategy that will work in the future too, because people will say, we hope, hey, we went to Chattanooga, we brought our car, we had a great time. The Ingram family, who owns some spectacular Porsches up in Durham, North Carolina, they came the first year, brought two cars that were still dripping from the lawn at Pebble Beach, and they're bringing two cars again this year. And that's what we hope to attract: your basic next door neighbor collector, and some of the people who you read about in the magazines and see on videos.
And Ken, I think for people that don't know you, and I know you don't, you want to talk about Chattanooga, but to pull off a show like this, and John's been involved in them, I've been involved, obviously. It's not like you're not just going out there and pulling this all out of the weeds. I mean, you're engrossed in the automotive community. You have a strong background. I mean, you were at the Peterson for quite some time. You've done amazing exhibits and brought cars together at museums all around the country. You yourself have a Rolodex unlike any other, and that's a big opportunity for Chattanooga to be able to pull these cars in.
People enjoy showing their cars. As you well know, people will loan you cars as a museum. People like to bring their cars to major events, and we can capitalize on that. The other thing, too, is that with COVID, so many events have been shut down. The month of October, I mean, Trish and I were in St. Michael's last week, and Radnor the week before. We're going to Newport this weekend, and then Hershey, and on and on. So everything's been kind of jammed into the end of the year. And I think we've capitalized a little bit on the fact that people didn't get to do things in the spring, and now they can. I forgot to mention, I love museums as someone who ran the Peterson and likes to do art museum exhibits. So in addition to the Corvette Museum and the GM Heritage Center, Tennessee's own Jeff Lane is bringing literally a reliable truck full of his cars. Now, that's only 5 cars of normal size, but it's a lot of cars. That's Jeff's size. And at the same time, he's going to bring his Dymaxion 3-wheeler, the Buckminster Fuller crazy car, and one of his propeller cars. So we'll have, that's another attraction that we'll have. The Barber Museum is bringing some cars. I just think you won't be disappointed if you can.
Jeff definitely has a very eclectic collection. We had him on, I don't know, a year ago or so on the show, and he's a great guy. I visited with him up at his museum, and
he drives his cars, which I think are amazing, given how difficult some of them are.
I'm amazed. We talked to him because he does that rally every year, and not only does he drive his cars, he lets people pay to do road rallies in his cars. And that really says a lot for trust and, to have the confidence. So many, museums even have cars that run, but they don't really run that well. But for him to hand it to somebody really says a lot. Corvette Museum should do that.
Hey, the Corvette Museum cars all run really well. And we're bringing one quiet one this year and one loud one. And if Ken is so inclined, and maybe I think it's Chris is running the Racetrack, if they'll allow us, we may go out and make some noise with the loud one if they would like us to. So
Chris is looking at it because of the way the races are scheduled. But personally, I would love to do that. In 2019, I'd love you to do that. In 2019, we had Tanner Faust doing burnouts and wheelies, and the crowd loves it and kids love it. We cannot continue this hobby if kids aren't interested. And whatever it takes, if it's a smoky burnout or a crazy costume or a nutty car, to just get that little peak of interest, then we'll have done our job.
1,000%, exactly.
Well, you've convinced me to probably clear the calendar. Like I said, hopefully we got some of the listeners to do that. Is there anything else, or otherwise probably, as a bonus episode, we'll go about 30 minutes tonight. Anything else we've missed? I mean, it seems no matter we say something and you remember something else about the show, Ken, or?
Well, I'd like to leave a few things as surprises for, and the surprises I think would be some of the cars that will be there. My friend Myron Vernus from Akron, Ohio, is bringing a Paxton a car that was originally designed to run on steam power, but they could never quite make it work. So now it has a flat four Porsche engine, but it's the way it appeared on the cover of Road and Track in 1956. Most people have probably never seen anything quite like it, and it'll be there. Jeff Hacker, for those of you who know Forgotten Fiberglass, Jeff is with some of his friends is bringing a couple of these big fiberglass sport customs that represented a brief flash by some backyard inventor to build a great automobile, and many have survived, and we'll have some of those. So I like to think that people will come, they'll have a good time, and they'll want to come back, and hopefully they'll want to bring a car next time, because we're open to that.
What I love about that, John, you're probably about to say the same thing, is that Myron and Jeff, the two people you just listed, are previous guests of the show, and we enjoyed having them on. I actually laughed because, Ken, as you know, Myron and I are good friends. Hiding behind me in between the Falcon and the Chrysler is actually a car I bought from Myron, one of his oddballs that he was getting rid of. It also just kind of shows, for those of us that are in the community, and as you talked about, getting younger generations involved, it's a close-knit circle. We all know each other. We're all friends. This is a hobby that brings people together, and we all get to know each other and enjoy doing this. And I think that's one of the cool things about this show. It brings everybody together. And like you say, if you can get the younger generation, which there were a lot of kids walking around in 19, a lot of families brought their younger, kids to see the cars. And we're all welcoming to those younger generations. And I mean, I sat and talked to every kid that was interested in any of the Corvettes. I wanted them to know everything they wanted to know about them. So it's a great opportunity to get introduced to some of these people, like Ken, like Myron, like Wayne, all the people that he's listed. Corky Coker's there running around like crazy. And that's, the younger kids get to meet these people, and they start talking to them and meet more of the people in the circle. That's how I got into this. That's how I got to know people like Ken and Myron, is just going to a show and introducing myself.
John mentioned, do we have anything else? And I forgot to mention the legendary charity cruise-in. Legendary / Coker Tire is sponsoring literally a Run What You Brung. Bring it. We've got I think we have about 30 different clubs who are all going to come with their cars, and then individuals whose cars aren't in the concours are welcome to come to the charity cruise-in on Saturday. So we moved everything up a little bit. Last year, 2019, the concours was on Saturday. This year it's on Sunday, and Saturday will be the charity cruise-in. So, and the races go on all the time. So, you better come, John. I think it's just better.
What one day would you, if I only could come for one day, what one day would you come for?
Sunday would be the major day, I think. Yep.
I'll be honest, I clicked over here to media credentials, and I'm going, maybe I can figure out this. So,
might just be able to swing that.
Judy Stropus organizes that for us. She's just been named to the Motorsport Hall of Fame. She was the queen of timing and scoring back in the 50s and 60s and early 70s. Some people joke that she had the strongest bladder of anybody at the track, so she could sit there and never miss a lap. But having been friends with Judy for over 50 years, it's all in here, and she's a brilliant lady, and she's handling our PR for us. So tell her Ken sent you.
I just might. Like I said, we've covered the show extensively, and we want to make sure we don't pull every little nugget out of you. Great talking with you. You've, like I said, went from, maybe I'll go to, I got to figure out how to get there. Obviously, Derek's going to be there with some toys from his day job. I'm kind of anxious to go up and see that.
Great.
Anything else you would need to ask Derek, or?
No, it's just always a pleasure to sit down and talk to Ken anytime I get a chance. So I'm glad we were able to get together and talk about this show. And I am looking forward to about 2 weeks from now.
We really appreciate the opportunity with you all to let more people know about Chattanooga. And so thank you very much for your time.
And thank you for staying up a little bit out of normal business hours to accommodate us too, so Ken. And hopefully I get to meet you here in a couple of weeks personally.
I look forward to it.